And welcome back to another exciting episode of Riding Through the Unknown. I'm your host, Michael, and I am so grateful and blessed tonight to be joined by a guest making her third appearance on the series and always has great information to share and is always on key with what's going on. And I am so grateful to be able to have this opportunity to yet again talk with my amazing guest tonight. And so, if you want to hear all about her story, you can watch the first two episodes because tonight we are delving into two new topics. And I gotta say, I am super excited we're delving into these topics. So, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to an amazing author, friend, and individual that I am so blessed to know and so grateful and appreciative to, the one, the only, talented Olivia James.
Hi, thank you for having me again.
Thank you for coming back. I have to say, your
So, I
shows.
guess, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say your shows. A lot of people will always comment to me, "Wow, she shared such really great information and her story is so amazing," and so I'm like always excited for what you're going to be bringing next.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I do have some, well, this is so important. That's why I've kind of focused on Project Oblivion lately and like my efforts and trying to get information out about it. It's just so important because it's affecting everyone in the disclosure community. And I have to do my disclaimer. This is, my information, my truth. I'm getting information from my personal experience, from my own abilities. Everyone is welcome to do their own research and have their own opinions and own belief systems about anything, you know, despite what I say. That's my disclaimer for that. So, Project Oblivion has been kind of like a main focus of mine lately. So, I started to get information about Project Oblivion probably last year. And it came through as, I've been doing a lot of, I don't know, remote viewing and obtaining information, advanced remote viewing and obtaining this information for a few years now. And at first, I was focused a lot on, trying to get information from my own healing, my own story, and trying to piece my story together about what happened to me in MK Ultra and trying to figure that piece out. And it's kind of shifted. And actually, I got the information about Project Oblivion during a remote viewing session. And, it's almost like there's a particular, these agencies have just had enough. And when I say agencies and, handler divisions and things like that, do I exactly know who's at the top? No, I don't. It's very difficult to see who is at the very top. I've never been able to do that. And I haven't been able to see it obtain. We do work on this a lot to get information for everyone, and it's a huge risk. I want people to know that this is not just something that's just a normal, I'm taking, and anybody that works with me is taking, to get information, because this is secret information hidden in the shadows. Nobody would know this if I didn't risk my life trying to get it. You wouldn't even know about this. So when the Project Oblivion, one of the main agents came through, they just started telling me. And unfortunately, I kind of pushed myself into somebody else's brain to get this information for you all. I had to influence this person to make sure that they told me. And what they told me is that this new project called Project Oblivion has been given the green light, and they're planning on implementing it. And what they want to do is stop this. Stop everybody from talking. Stop these podcasts. This is the problem, is they feel that we're gaining too much progress and credibility, because in the past it was a lot of conspiracy nature themes, and a lot of talk about aliens and a lot of new age ideas, which nothing's wrong with that. There's a place for everything in disclosure, I feel. But now that we're becoming more credible, and we're able to verify and validate some of our information in certain ways, it's become a huge problem. And they feel like it has to be stopped. So they're implementing this project in order to do that in various ways, various techniques. And pretty much what they said is that oblivion is coming for us all, to stop us. And it includes, a lot of it's going to be focused right now on podcasters. That's the beginning of their project, is to focus on podcasters, because they have allowed us to get this information out in a way, you know so they don't want that. They can't have that, and they can't have people supporting us and maintaining this momentum that we've gathered by telling our stories, and you know reliving our experiences for people by speaking about this. So what they're doing, they're, like I said, they're using various techniques, they're using various technology, and they're implementing certain what we call oblivion agents, to come and infiltrate the movement. So there's a lot of different aspects to this particular project, and you will start to notice it. You will start to notice, things are kind of weird. You're getting weird messages from people that become more threatening, that, are different. I just had one last week. Somebody physically threatened me last week just over a meme, so it's starting to pick up some energy, and they're starting to kind of go harder, and that's what they're saying. They're kind of having to come harder at us, and there's a lot of different agencies involved. And I don't know, what do you think about it? Have you seen
Yeah,
anything? Have you noticed anything in the community that you can see?
it is interesting because I've seen people's channels being shut down for absolutely nothing, and I had a couple of times where I was giving condolences to someone over a loss, and Facebook flagged my comment and took it down. And I appealed twice because I was like, this is really random and weird. Why would they go after that? And it surprised me because they actually reversed and put them back up. And it's like, yeah, but why would you go after someone for saying I'm sorry for having a loss? So yeah, I could say Facebook is definitely
Yeah, it's
becoming weird. You can go ahead.
yeah, and they're using
Okay, folks, we're having a little bit of techie issues with lagging internet on her end, so we'll do the best we can.
I'm back.
Okay.
Hello, Project Oblivion. Hello. Right when I was going to talk about it. Interesting.
Right. We were
So
discussing Facebook acting weird.
I also, yeah, thanks a lot, Project Oblivion. So what it also, so some of the messages they've given me, the Project Oblivion agents and these handler divisions, they said that they just say a lot of like things to kind of counteract what yet anything positive we're doing. They say that we're weak, and that we're going to just run away from all this, that we're going to scurry back to our holes, that we're never going to make any progress, that, they said that we're so weak that they send one person to our movement and we just fall down, like it's nothing, because they say they're somehow like activating people. I call them oblivion agents. They activate certain people to infiltrate the movement and create divisiveness, have because once we start infighting and all this, it's just it's all, it's pretty much a wrap on whatever was going on, and it takes so long to come back from that, as people are trying to work out their differences and things like that. There's a lot of people coming in the community that I've noticed that are just, and people can have their own opinion, but when they come and start to threaten and trying to pretty much, take you down in a way, it that goes beyond, like, what is so threatening about this information that you have to either threaten somebody's life or threaten to, get them in trouble somehow, get all their accounts shut down. It's really interesting when I see stuff like that. And the one thing that I'm noticing is, I just noticed that I was been noticing this, is that when you get some good information out, you have really good information, people start to call you an agent. I've noticed that, I'm getting that a little bit, just because I can, remote view and get information for people. They're saying that I'm an agent, and I've noticed that happening. I was like, nice try. Nice try. I'm getting that a lot. Like, oh, you must be the agent. You're trying to mind control us because you're giving us this information. I'm starting to see that a lot. And it's like, it's kind of, and when they do that, they know that the oblivion knows that that's hard to fight back against. They know that, because once somebody gets that seed planted in their mind, they're always going to be distrustful, and they feel like, worried, and there's always something about that that always impacts people when they start to falsely accuse people of being either an agent, mentally ill, lying, infiltrating others, provoking situations. There's so many different aspects to how they're, trying to implement this program. I'm seeing it all the time. I'm seeing it all the time. So I'm trying to remind people constantly, don't forget, Project Oblivion has already been tasked to stop us from even talking about this. They don't want us talking about this. They don't want us to be awakened. They don't want us to awaken others. They want us to stop doing all of this, any type of progress you made. They don't want us, with conferences and all that. They don't want any of that happening. It's making too much progress. So I
Yeah,
did
that
a
makes
session.
sense.
It was, oh, go ahead.
I was just agreeing with you. That makes sense.
Yeah, so this is really interesting. I did a more recent session trying to get more information about Oblivion. And it's been actually okay. So I was under a very deep trance, remote viewing and getting information. I was letting different people speak to me. I was trying to connect with different parts of people to get information. And when I was going very deeply, I started to see, this is a trigger for me. I see eyes whenever somebody is looking at me or somebody is infiltrating my session. So I started to see different eyes, and then I connected to that person, and it was a guy, and I saw him, and he was just sitting in a chair with his head back. He had like sunglasses on. It was like daytime. He had sunglasses on, and that's the same way I do it. So I knew he was a remote viewer because I cover my eyes with something dark, and so did he. He did that, the same thing. He covered his eyes, and I was like, able to see who he was, and I'm trying to, and sometimes when you can connect to a certain part of a person, you can get all the information you need. I mean, there's so many different parts of a person to connect to: their mind, the front of their mind, the back of their mind, the, internal mind, different parts of the brain, their different parts of the personality, any alters, any spirit guides, any piece of them that's, astral, their higher self. There's so many different pieces, and I'm able to connect to different pieces to get information. So that's how I do it. That's how I get information, is kind of like, doing this. So what he was telling me is that there's a few different agencies that have been hired by Oblivion, and they're tasked with, right now he's saying that they're basically have started their observation, their intel gathering, and they're going to be moving into more like infiltration. So right now, he said he was observing me to see what I was, doing, what I'm talking about, what I'm finding, and then he just makes a report and sends it to his superior so they know what's going on every time I try to look. I thought it was interesting because he said, so the group that he was a part of is a group called the Blessed Guard. And when I looked at it, it had been created under Stalin, and it had been going on for this long. It was actually used for royals. You know, they were using, it's almost like a psychic army. It's a military group. It's called the psychic. It was a psychic, almost like a psychic branch of this army, and they're called the Blessed Guard. So they've been around a long time. And he was just a basic worker. He's just a basic remote viewer. He said that he had been trained as a child to do this, and it was an offshoot of something like a Phoenix Project. And I don't even know what the Phoenix Project is, but that's what he told me. So he was letting me see various parts of what is going to be happening. I even saw the proposal for Oblivion. I saw the front page of Project Oblivion, and it was written by somebody named Stan Richfield. So he was the main person to draft up all the stratagem and the techniques that they're going to be using for us and to infiltrate our movement. Um, so I thought that was really interesting to see this person had already saw what I was doing, and that so many different factions have a stake in what we're all doing here in the disclosure movement. They have interest. Someone as far away as, Russia has interest in what we're doing for some reason, is because they've all been hired, to stop us, and they want this stopped. So they're going to figure out different ways. And there was a lot of different things that he was trying to talk about and tell me, basically. And what I thought was interesting is was able to meet one woman, and there are going to be some double agents. So there are going to be Oblivion agents, but they're going to be helping us and assisting us. I met one woman, and everybody needs to respect this woman. This is just a normal girl. She looks like a normal girl, so nobody would ever suspect her. Never. And she's that good. She almost reminds me of kind of like a gray mouse type of altar. No one would expect her. So she's just a normal girl from Oklahoma. She's taken on this, and she said that once they find out, she's not going to be around anymore. She told me that. So take everything that she gives us and use it to push the movement forward, because she said she's pretty much taken on a kamikaze mission for our movement. And people should kind of respect that there are people that are risking their lives to kind of help us and keep it going. We have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. Unless you have sight and vision that far, you won't know. And that's how people move through life, just totally asleep. We don't know. And it's no one's fault that we don't know. These things have been hidden from us for so long. We can't access this. It takes somebody that can have that, farsight to even be able to do this. And so I'm kind of more focused on this and finding out who these people are and why they're doing this, rather than, always speaking to aliens and stuff like that. Yeah, that stuff is fun and it's cool, but my main focus is trying to get this information out about Project Oblivion so people can be aware that, we need to make sure that we're continuing to talk about our experiences and not letting this stop us or, even, slow us down. We have to keep going.
And what I find interesting is with everything they've trained us to do, the body remembers it, so the muscle memory is there. The fact that they would ever say the people who have gone through this are weak is kind of almost like, do you even
Yeah.
realize what you've created? Because
So,
that would be the
yeah, go
opposite
ahead.
of how I would describe us. Did we lose you or
So when he started showing me different things, he also I also saw that he was kind of, this is really interesting, and I really don't get a lot of information about technology once in a while, but I saw that some of their group of the Blessed Guard, they have some type of machine where if they're hooked up to it, it creates a transcript of what they're seeing or what's going on in the mind. So
Alright, it seems like the internet, the energy of Olivia and I talking seems to be too high, and it's having a hard time keeping the connection. And so we'll work on hopefully getting her back on and reconnected and keep sharing this. And it is possible, Iron Bear, that someone could be tapping in. I just, I don't want to spread fear. I'd like to keep a positive frame to it and just know that we are more than they can ever know. And so here we go. Welcome back.
Uh, oh, yeah. Sorry, I'm not quite sure what's going on. I haven't had this problem in a long time. I
It's all
apologize.
right. I feel like it's like what we were talking about is our energies are so high, the internet's not able to keep it.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Or I can hear you just said, can you hear me? It looks like you're talking, but it's it's more
Okay.
like air
How much
going
did you
by.
hear? I didn't know when I cut off. What did I leave off at?
Uh, you were
Can you
discussing.
hear me okay?
I can hear you now. So whatever you were saying when you came
Can you hear
back,
me? Okay.
we heard you say, "Can you hear me?" And then it was like wind coming through your mic, and that was it.
Hmm. Okay. I'll try to keep going. What was the last topic that you heard?
We were discussing how they're trying to keep the information from coming out, and that there's a young lady in Oklahoma that is helping, and there are others that are trying to help us, and
Okay.
that's where
Did
it
you
kind of
hear
got.
the part about did you hear the part about the machine from the remote viewer that I saw?
You started talking about it, and I think that's where it kind of got haywire.
Okay, so I'll start there. So the gentleman that I was remote viewing, we were kind of like connected, remote viewing each other to see what each of us was doing. He was hooked up to a machine, and the machine created a transcript of whatever he could see in his mind, and that I thought that was really cool. And that they call it the stream, and the logo for the stream is like a water sign. So that's something that I have to research. And he told me that what the machine does is that measures binary impulses and then creates a script of it. So they're using a lot of different technology, not just for Oblivion, but for a lot of different things. And that they're going to be implementing neurotransmitters, if that's the right word for it, I think. But he was pretty much saying that it's not just about us. He says it's a world agenda, and that we're taking too much of this, like, oh, they're focusing mainly on us. He said it's for this is the world, and you're just one part of it that needs to be stopped. And he said you can go ahead and fight back, but you're going to have, they have a plan and a strategy that we can't, pretty much fight. That's what they think. And that they said that they have to stop us, and we asked, like, stop doing what? And they said for us attempting to be free. And they said that make sure we know there's no freedom here, that we're going to have to seek that freedom in another life. So they really have a really interesting way of talking. And you know I think a lot of them are programmed themselves as well. I mean, it's just, that's just what it is. And there's going to be one Oblivion agent that I have. He has a nickname. He's called the Prince of the East. I don't know what that means, but they said somebody to keep on the look for, somebody called the Prince of the East. and he's going to be an Oblivion agent trying to kind of, infiltrate and, things like that. They're going to be. So we asked them what part of are they connected to certain parts of the government, and what's Project Oblivion connected to, and these people said the DoD. And we asked them why not, the CIA, and they said because the CIA is taking too much heat. They can't even use them. They can't use that name. They're not saying that it's not connected, but they can't use that name because they're taking too much heat lately. And we kind of figured like, well, how they gonna just be so much in the dark and where people can't find them? It's because they said as soon as you figure out who they are, they just change their name, change departments. They said they did the same thing with MK Ultra. It's the easiest way. It's a departmental shift. And then by the time that's done, people are going to say that we're crazy, because they're like, there's nothing in the records. You can't find it. Like these types of agencies would keep thorough records like that for us to just have in our hands. That's ridiculous. So
Exactly.
that's what they're kind of saying, that it would take like all it takes is a departmental shift, and then nobody's going to believe us anymore. And they said that, there's something to do with the fingers is one thing that this guy told me. They tracking something with fingers, and I don't know how the hands are so important to their monitoring. And it's just I have no idea what they're doing. I mean, what can you think of anything with the fingers? Why was that so important to their monitoring?
Well, being a Reiki master, I know the hand is used to transmit energy, and energy has frequencies. And so, what they could be doing is not only using our fingerprints that are on our fingers, but also our energy to track and try and track us that way and try to figure out what we're doing, who we're talking to, and even to the point of, like you're saying, if they're trying to get it into us to try and dissolve what we're doing. I mean, the fingers are what we use to communicate, in essence, unless like telepathic, but even still, there are times where when I'm telepathically linking to something, I'll be like doing like some
Yep.
like movement with my hands. And so maybe that's what they're talking about with the fingers, is how our energies and signatures and stuff and information is passed through.
Yeah, and I guess I wanted to say that I know it sounds weird that I can do this. So I don't want people to think that it's super easy and that they're just handing things over to me. I am using part of my ability to kind of force it out of them. And that might sound, kind of sketchy to some people, but I'm doing this for the world. So I really don't feel bad, and kind of like, pushing myself, past their point into where I'm getting information from them. And I was going to say that, so the girl that's going to be the double agent, the girl with the round face, she's from Oklahoma. She said that, since she's not going to be able to maintain her life and position, I guess, as she already knows that. She says it's a kamikaze mission. Once they find out that she's double, it's a wrap for her. But she said she's going to hold the information that she gets, she's going to hold it in her head like in a vault for me, and she gave me a code. So in the future, when she's ready for me to have it, I have to like do this. I have to go under my trans remote view, use everything I have, reach her, and use that code like almost like pressing a button, and she's going to give me the information that she has so I can take it in, you know bring it all out, put it in books, whatever I need to do to get it out to people. She's going to tell me what's happening.
That's interesting. And as you were talking about that, I started thinking again what other things, and because like Iron Bear was saying, we use fingers for building things too. And then I started thinking about a lot of the crafts that are used are activated by hands. And so there's coding in our fingers to
Hmm.
activate other things, and maybe that's what they're trying to get by saying they're needing the fingers is they can't activate technology that we can.
It's possible. A lot of it's possible. From what I saw is they're very advanced from what I can see of them. And throughout that whole session, I was like, when I closed my eyes, somebody it in my brain, and like that's why I kind of was like, oh, here they are again. So they pushed themselves to the front of my, somebody had pushed themselves to the front of my head, and I had my eyes closed, and I seen a pair of eyes like inside my head. I mean, that's trippy. If you've never experienced somebody infiltrating your mind, they were right there. And,
Yeah.
I try to like block it out, but, sometimes they're as strong as I am. I always say this, like, I'm not a professional, I'm not a psychic, I'm just, learning how to do I'm just a girl trying to get this information to people. So I'm not I'm not really a badass that's like doing all this stuff. I'm kind of just like a little mouse, trying to sneak into places and get this for people. So it wasn't the first time I had been infiltrated by somebody. This happened, I think, this was some months back. I did a session, and I was getting some amazing information. It was really flowing, and right when I think I had gone too far, because right towards the end of the session, I was getting this information, and right at that moment, I started to see a hand like coming through.
Okay, I think we're experiencing another glitch, and so hopefully it'll pass and we'll get her to come back on and explain the hand and maybe get a chance to ask her about handlers. But yeah, it is, I have to say, interesting that as we are talking about this project to stop the flow of information, it is awfully coincidental that we're experiencing it firsthand right here. Possibly.
Hi, I'm so
Ah,
sorry. I haven't had this many problems ever. I think this is the first time.
well, that's
I mean,
okay.
it is important information, and it's different from what people usually talk about. So I get it. I get it that they don't want me to tell people this. I mean, there's no it's gonna get out there, so they can try as they might, but there's a lot of
Right,
different forms and ways to get information to people, so it's gonna happen. They're gonna have to just
right.
deal with it.
And this time you were saying that you were being infiltrated and you were seeing eyes and then this hand, and that's when you disappeared.
Okay, I'll start there if I can. Called counter remote viewing groups when I do this work. And a few months back, I was getting some really good information about Project Oblivion and what they intended to do. And they sent almost like, can you hear me?
I can hear you. It's
Oh my gosh, this is the worst. I'm so sorry.
no, I'm finding this most interesting because it's like when you were saying, "Can you hear me?" Your picture did not activate, like showing that you're speaking because you're in avatar mode, and then all of a suddenly it started flashing, and it sounded like somebody was walking.
What? That's weird.
Yeah,
I don't know, it
so
could be an infiltration. I mean, honestly, it could be an infiltration at this point. If this many times, that's crazy. But
I know.
okay, I'll try again. I'll try again. So I did have a session where, like I said, I was getting information for Project Oblivion, and at that moment, I saw a hand coming through my head. Imagine in the inside of your mind when you look, there was a hand coming through, like literally coming through to my head, and we had to pull back from the session because it was a psychic assassin group. So a lot of these groups have figured out that somehow I have been able to do this, and now they're infiltrating pretty much every session I'm doing now, somehow trying to pop through and see what I'm doing, or watching what I'm doing, something like that. So, I mean, and it could have been bad. I've never been attacked by, I don't know if I've been attacked by a psychic assassin, but that was the first time I saw it happening while it was going on, that I saw that somebody was trying to put their hand in my head. And I don't know if it would have like caused some type of brain issue, aneurysm or something. I have no idea. So it was kind of scary. And I didn't do it for a while after that because I'm like, whoa, they're kind of not happy with whatever I'm doing and they don't want me to do this, you know. So that particular group, a psychic assassin group, was called Ronin, and they sent one of their agents to try to stop me from talking and giving out information. I still did though. I still gave it all the information I had. So it doesn't, it doesn't stop the movement. We have to keep going no matter kind of what kind of things they try. So I just want to say that sometimes you'll see, different whistleblowers talking about how they may have been, attacked, or somebody was sent to them to try to cause problems or harm them. It's real. I mean, it's really happening. It's, I don't know how else to tell people that there is a revolution on the horizon. I've been told, by that general from the future, there's a revolution on the horizon in 12 to 15 years. The future is bleak unless we can get this moving ourselves. And that, that general gave the task to us. He said there is, and I just had somebody kind of, I don't know, I had posted about it earlier, and somebody kind of made a snarky comment of like saying that I was talking about QAnon or something. And I said, I don't even know what you're talking about. This has nothing to do with that. So this general gave us the task and said that there's no white hats. That is just us. We're all the white hats that we have, and there's no saviors. There's nobody coming to, stop any of this. It's just us. So we have to figure out kind of how to handle it, how to stop that from happening, because the future, I think they said it was about 38% that it was going to happen the way that they told me it would. And from what I saw in the future, 12 to 15 years, it looks pretty bleak. We're losing a lot of the traction that, we made. People have lost a lot of, you know, different things. From what I saw, it just looked bleak. It looked like an eternal kind of like gloominess when I went to the base and met that general. And he said he had waited a long time for me to be able to do this, activate this ability and be able to get this message from him and bring it back here to this time period. He said he's waited for a long time, and he wasn't able to name himself or name the base or name a lot of the things. And he said Oblivion is still around in 12 to 15 years, that there's still Oblivion. And he pretty much said that we have to build the network here ourselves, maintain the network by ourselves. There's nobody else going to help us. Whoever we think is like at the top, that's not the people that are going to save us. He said it's going to be us, doing what we're doing now, talking about our experiences, getting information out, building a network by doing this, and meeting people, and maintaining those connections, positively, and things like that. Trying to unify. I know it's difficult. There's a lot of different things going on, but that's what the journal's mission is. He said, build the network, maintain the network, and protect the Olympia group. He said, he said that's the only chance they have, and that the future has. In his opinion, he said, if they don't have the Olympia group to do their work, those kids, those hacker kids, I think I've talked to you about them before, right? The Olympia group.
Yes, we talked about them on the last episode.
Yeah, he's saying that if we don't have those kids, that they can't turn the tides of the war because, there's so much technology in that time frame that they need those kids. They need the hackers to, do that. So he was, I don't know, he's very adamant about us continuing this mission, whether or not they send Oblivion agents. He already knows that. He knows that Oblivion is coming, pretty much coming for us all to stop us from, telling people about this. It's just basic, what would the world be like if they knew what had happened to us as kids? I mean, it would be a different world, hugely different world if people really started to believe us and, took this information. What can we expect from that, if the more believable we become, the world is going to change hugely. And I don't know if everybody's ready for that, but that's what's supposed to be happening is, it's time for the world to change and the world to realize and to wake up to the corruption and the crimes, crimes against children. It all needs to stop. And his big message is, protect children. And I don't know why people think that's such an outrageous message. He's just saying protect children and to save yourselves and to do the work yourselves. There's nobody else. You can't, not even just saying you can't trust the people at the top. Just don't rely on them. They have their own agendas. And what is our agenda going to be? And for me, it's freedom. It's freedom, it's truth, it's awakening, everything.
Right, and that's true. And I find it interesting that I did an episode a couple of weeks ago, and my guest was talking about this bleakness that was coming and everything. And as I was talking to him, I said, "Well, you mentioned earlier by having knowledge of it, we can alter it so it's not the bleak." And he goes, "Yeah,
Yes.
you're absolutely right." And so that's the thing I think, along with the messages like that you're sharing and everything, is to remind people just by having awareness and thinking about it, you're bringing it to the forefront and potentially altering the program.
I think so too. I it's pretty much been my mission to just talk about what happened to me. Whatever, just to maybe one person will get awakened by like, oh wait, that might have happened to me. I think that happened to me too. And it's like it's going to be a chain reaction, more people waking up. And if they don't, it's kind of, that's their choice. I can't, but I have to think about, the mission that I was given, no matter who, even if it's only 5 people, it's still a mission. It's still a mission that I was told that I had to do, not just from, not just the general, it's for all of us. He asked us to do this, and I kind of trying to stand by it and do what he said, in a way. But I know how it sounds. I know when I talk about how I met this general from the future. You think I don't? I just want people to think. You think I don't know how this sounds? Of course, I know how this sounds. And imagine how it felt when I was going through it. And so, and it wasn't even when I was doing a remote viewing session or anything that I first met this general. He came to me, and he had these 2 people come pick me up and take me there. And it doesn't matter how it happened. If it was it doesn't matter, it was real. I spoke to him, I saw what was happening, and he gave me the message. And now that I've been able to pick up kind of this energy with my ability, I can connect to him. And he doesn't just offer. He doesn't offer up information. Usually I'm pretty good at like kind of pulling things from people's heads and, kind of getting that. He's not the type for that. I wasn't able to do that with him. He offers information when it's available, and it's based on like need to know basis. And this was what he gave us as the message, as a need to know basis for, immediate work.
On a thing that I've noticed that's kind of along the lines, I think, of what your mission is and doing is a lot of people, and I don't mean this to be judgmental. So please, like Olivia said, this is my opinion and my experience. So take it for what it is. But as I've been talking with people who are in the programs, a lot of times every episode is almost the exact copy of the episode because all they do is retell their story, retell the story, retell the story. And I
Yes.
know I've only been watching for maybe 3 years, but I'm like, if you've been doing this for 5, 6 years, people are going to stop paying attention to you because you're not evolving. And I've
Right.
noticed I've had the mentality thought of instead of focusing on just the bad parts of what you went through, and I'm not saying deny them, I'm just saying go beyond them and look to what positives have come from what you've learned and what you've retained from being in the programs. And I've started to notice a lot of the experiencers are wanting to come forward and share that positive, and I think that's going to be part of the resurgence, like you're saying, where we need to keep united in the forefront is because people are going to start to look at us and go, oh, so you're not just this tragedy, you've actually,
Yes.
there's other stuff. Oh, well, let me tune back in then because I want to hear this new stuff that you're talking about, because you get tired of hearing the same old. And
Yes.
so
Yeah,
that's
and I've
where
heard that. Yeah,
yeah,
and I hear that sometimes. I hear people saying, like, some people comment and say, "You're so doom and gloom," and I'm just like, well, actually, if you look at some of the stuff, if you, I'm trying to, I do actually both, and I try to present it both, but it's just people seem to be more interested in the gloomy stuff. That has nothing to do with me. I'm giving out a lot of positive information. If anybody has read either of my books, I mean, it was amazing healing work to bring out some of that. Especially, I put a lot about my father in there. His messages. Messages from really like amazing like religious figures and different pieces of that. It's not just this thing. It was kind of like the whole experience. There's ghosts are speaking, spirits are speaking, entities, everything was speaking through me. And I took, and I know people probably, if they were looking on the outside, they'd be like, she's, possessed or demonic. But for me, it was a spiritual experience. I don't care who was speaking. For me, it became spiritual experience. I would never give it up. I would never want to take it away or go back and say that it never happened, because that's not true. I have to speak my truth in terms of the way I present my information, and I stay authentic. I won't lie about anything. I refuse that. Just to make somebody else comfortable, I refuse to do that. That's why pretty much everything I've ever written, especially in book form or something, is exact what a thing said, a person said, a ghost said, anything, it's exactly what they said. And I want people to read it that way. That's why it kind of reads sometimes as like short stories, because I want people to see the information for what it is and then make their own determination on it. And obviously I've had people say that I was possessed and that I was schizophrenic. That's normal. And I get it. I understand why they think that, because of their own fears or whatever. And it's easier. I think it is probably easier for people to just say that, oh yeah, she's crazy. For them, it probably makes them comfortable rather than seeing like, holy shit, there's a lot of stuff out there that we have no idea about. I think it makes them, more comfortable just to say that I'm crazy.
right. And it's kind of funny as you were saying, you've been accused of being a doom and gloomer. The image that popped in my head was because I was couldn't sleep right away last night, so I put on this old movie from the 80s on, and it happened to be the Care Bears because I was like, I could fall asleep to that easy.
Hmm.
And as you said, doom and gloom, I'm picturing going, the closest description I could think of if you were the doom and gloomer would be Grumpy Bear, who, is
Yeah.
just, and I'm like, he's not a doom and gloomer, but it's like he's not exactly perky happy either. But what I found interesting was the symbol on his stomach, that they use to
Hmm.
share their feelings and everything is. his is a cloud with raindrops. And I was like, that's the perfect image for you because you are a storm coming. You're bringing a storm by sharing this information, and each and every one of us are a piece of that storm. And that's where I think we keep hearing, the nomenclature right now with everything going on, that there's a storm coming and you can't stop the storm, or nothing's going to stop the storm, or don't fear the storm because you are the storm. And it's like, yeah. And I was talking with someone and they're like, yeah, storms are great and everything. And I said, well, you do realize storms are the cleansers. That's how
Yes.
the planet cleanses itself. So when you look at it that way, it's like, yeah, we're coming in to clean up.
We've been given a mission. I mean,
Yeah,
it's as simple as that, and nobody has to jump on the bandwagon with me. I've taken this on, bum I'm not asking anybody to, join some type of the movement or the mission or whatever. It's their choice. If they want to, and for them, for other people, the mission is to get your information out. I don't know, that's to me, I don't think it sounds awful. I don't think that sounds like a hard mission or scary. The general's asking us to maintain this network that we've building by getting your information out. If you had
right.
something that happened to you, tell people about it, talk about it, heal, involve other people, that kind of thing. That's what it's about. It's not about, you know, anything but the revolution. He told me is going to be a war of words. He said it's a war of information that's happening now. So that's why I give information, because that's what he told me to do. This is a war of information. And my own father, he's passed away for a really long time, and he's become kind of like a spirit guide for me. He even told me, he said, you picked a hard road. And he told me, he's like, nothing is going to be easy from this moment on. The moment I spoke to him, he's like, you picked a hard road. And he said, it's always going to be difficult. But he said, go anyways. That's what he told me. So I stay true to, I always say that I'm my father's daughter. And he told me to do this. And I have to respect that. He saw something in me. He sees something in all of us that we can move forward and, complete this mission by telling people about what happened to us and helping to awaken the world with just our words.
Right. And what's kind of synchronistic about this is, you know, uh, when you look at the revolutions in the past, I was watching a scientist, I think you pronounce his name Stephen Burns, and he did a clip where a lot of the major revolutions were on high solar activity. So the sun is very influential on us. And we happen to be right now in a high sun deal. But what's different about what we're doing versus like political revolutions is, in politics, revolutions, people are affecting change in a way that they're out to prove this and prove that, and improve life and everything. Where our revolution is just wanting acknowledgement. There's like, we're not in it for pension. We're not in it for, the stars or medals. We're in it just to be able to sit there and be able to hold our heads up and say, yeah, we survived this. And people go, wow, I'm impressed that you guys were able to survive that. And thank you for doing what you did for us, just like soldiers on the battlefield.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no accolades in this.
Yeah,
Pretty much most of the time people are calling me crazy or an agent or something. It's not like I'm getting accolades and like, oh, you're so, I'm not hearing that, so it still doesn't stop me because I know what I've been tasked to do, you know, and other people will find their own missions. If this is not the one for you, you go and find what part you can play. in this, in helping us awaken the world to, this corruption, these crimes, everything. That's what we're trying to do, is to make sure people know about this, just by, telling people, tell them your story, what happened to you, go on a podcast, or even just write a little piece of something in an article or something. There's all different formats and different types of media that people are looking at now, and it's going to plant a seed somewhere, especially for, I worry about the Olympia group. But I feel like if people are putting like little pieces all over, the internet and all over the world, these kids are going to be able to see that, and maybe it'll plant a seed somewhere where at some point they'll be awakened to their own mission, and their mission for the revolution.
And I kind of feel like the Olympia group, I think they know. I think they're tapped in and they know what's going on. And I think they are starting to come forward because there's like information where people are like recognizing people and that I've never met. And they're like, I know you from this. And
Hmm.
even if you don't have memory, of meeting them somewhere, there's just, you get this feeling of, I think I have, because you're not getting oh, this is totally disinformation and you're full of this or that. You're getting, it's like it resonates to you. And
Right.
what I think is important, though, is as we're saying, come forward, with your stories and help each other. Use your discernment. Use and follow your resonance, because I feel like that is our truest and best defense against these quote oblivion agents who are trying to infiltrate, because we can sense things and they can't fake who they are on that level. Did that make sense?
Yes. Just keep, you keep yourself focused. That's what I do. I keep myself focused. Like I said, at the end of the day, they told me oblivion's coming for all of us. I mean, that's just what it is, what they said. People are going to start seeing it, people are going to feel it. And then what? You want to be left to yourself, or do we kind of want to match up and try to tackle this together?
Right. And I know we're at the hour mark, we're like 30 seconds from it, but
Hmm.
I had an observation that popped in my head. If you want, I can share with you real quick, or I can
Sure,
share it
sure.
offline. I noticed your book, you call yourself the Gray Mouse, and you use the Gray Mouse acronym a lot. And I was looking at Transformers, and it just popped in my head. The infiltrator for the Autobots is a mouse.
Oh, really? That's so cool.
And then I was like, and in G.I. Joe, the infiltrator is known as Tunnel Rat, or, some form of rat in his name. And I'm like, that is just so funny how we've had all these examples of infiltrators in our exposed to us, and here you are, the gray
I
mouse,
took it.
and you're an
Yeah.
infiltrator.
I took it, so it was a tool of mind control. They used it to program an alter in me that was going to be for espionage. And I took a tool of mind control and I made it something positive for myself. And, I took whatever they wanted to use to destroy me, I used it to build myself up. I'm not going to be ashamed of that gray mouse alter. So I took that on as, that's who I am. I still do that. I'll go out and infiltrate different groups in order to get this information for the world.
No, and the amazing thing about the mouse is it can get into any place, because
Yeah.
even though it's
And it,
got skeletal system, it can work its body into the smallest holes without hurting itself.
and it's very unexpected. It's very tiny. Nobody would suspect a mouse as something that's a threat. it's perfect for intel gathering, espionage, infiltration.
Yeah, just do yourself a favor and stay away from nutcrackers.
I will.
Just had to add some levity to the moment. No, but there is one thing I would like to say to you, Olivia, from if I may,
Sure.
and that is from my heart and all of my shows to you. Thank you for your service to humanity and all that you do.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, you do a lot, and I feel like, you know, a lot of times we take it for granted and we don't mean to. We're human, it happens. And
Yeah, definitely.
just wanted to take a moment and say, I see what you do, the sacrifices you make, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, same for you. You're gonna be feeling oblivion, and you're making the sacrifice too to keep the movement going forward with your show.
Yes, and so hopefully we'll get you back on again. And
Sure, it sounds great.
I always appreciate you coming on and sharing everything. And I know we didn't really get to handlers this time, but there's always the
Definitely
next
next time
episode.
we'll do a whole show on them.
And maybe that one will have a little less cutting in and out.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for your time. And thank you to everyone in the chat room. And for everyone who watches and supports the channel, feel free to click a like and leave a comment if you'd like. And I do try and respond to all the comments personally. So just keep in mind, everybody's experience is unique to themselves. So be respectful of that and make it a wonderful night. And feel free, if you feel called to join the revolution. Any last words you have, Olivia? Oh, I think I might have said the trigger word and caused us to
Yep,
glitch.
thank you.
Okay. I thought maybe I said the trigger word and glitched the system again. All right. Good night, everyone.